Cullen Jones, welcome to the podcast, mate. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm great, man. It's been an exciting summer. We've had a lot of great swims at Worlds and at Nationals. It's fun to watch. Nice to be on the retired side.
How closely do you follow it now? Are you still are you keeping one eye on it, one eye off, or what's going on?
You know, since I got this new role at Speedo as senior manager of sports marketing, I'm watching intently, paying attention to all the athletes, especially Team Speedo athletes, but all of the athletes have been putting up some amazing time. So it's a fun time to watch right now, especially now after COVID. Everyone's just lighting up the pool. So it's fun to watch.
That's cool. You've always been a Speedo guy too, man. So to be associated with a company that was your go-to as well, that must feel good, right?
It does. You know, I actually took a year off from swimming because for me, it was like I wanted to kind of go away from it for a little bit. I lived all my life with it. I worked at a hospital for a year as a development manager for a foundation, and I just knew that I wanted to be back in swimming. And so when Speedo called again and said, we want to actually have a philanthropic arm of our brand, I was like, yep, I'm right here. Bring me back. So I'm back at the pool. I love it.
Man, listen, lots of swimmers to talk to around the world, lots of stories. Everyone's got their own story. Everyone's unique. Everyone comes from somewhere and has done something incredible once they get to the point where, we're talking on the podcast here. I meet people, incredible people all the time, right? But none like you, man. I mean, you're unique of the unique, like you're an outlier of the outliers, and
Appreciate that.
You know what I mean? It's like someone like you has a much broader impact than any other swimmer, and I think the reasons are obvious, right? Like where you've come from and what you've done and the success you've had has had massive impact within a type of a community within America, right? Like I'm from Australia, right? So I didn't know much about America. I just knew it was a land of opportunity, right? But when I got here, I quickly realized there's divisions within America that you just have to accept, right? And that's part of America. But yeah, I don't know. So like what I'm trying to say here, I guess, is that you've risen and made this enormous impact on the sport of swimming, man. And congratulations on that.
I appreciate that, Brad. I mean, it's really been kind of handed off to me. I can't take full responsibility for it. I was just blessed to be in an era, in a race, and at a time where I was able to help get my hand on the wall. And then from that, was given kind of a soapbox and the opportunity to do anything I could with it. When you have people like Maritza Karaya, you have people like Sabir Muhammad, you have people that were before me that kind of handed the torch to me. I learned very quickly that with that torch came responsibility as being a role model.
Right.
So, even though I took that year away from the sport, when I came back and, took this role at Speedo, it felt like I never left because I never really did. My heart was always in the sport. My heart was always with the mission of getting kids to learn to swim. My heart was always in trying to diversify, the sport as much as possible. So that other swimmers that, potentially look like me or any person of color that wanted to be a part of swimming in the U.S. felt welcome. So, I mean, I feel like I took a year off, but at the same time, I never missed a step.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about the diversity. Like, I don't know if everybody knows my complete story or knows everything about me, but, my ex-wife is Jamaican. And so my kids, I guess, if you're going to categorize people like we like to in America, you tick certain boxes when you fill in forms.
Right.
Like what's your race and what color are you and all that sort of stuff. And, I don't know what my kids tick, like their father's white, their mother's black. And so I have mixed race children, and believe me, I wanted them to swim just for the fact that because I wanted these mixed race kids to get up on the podium at the Olympics and be like, but no, it didn't work out that way for my kids. But yeah, I guess that there are boxes in America, right? And did you have to fight through those boxes yourself?
Absolutely. I mean, that rule of, back from slavery, if you have one drop of black blood in you, you are black. That's literally a rule in the U.S. still to this day.
Right.
So, I definitely had to deal with that box. I was looking at old pictures, and I'll definitely send you some. I'm the only black kid sitting on a diving board with a bunch of kids that are white. And it's like, I was looking at it actually today and I was just like, wow, that's, you know, I tried not to think of it. I kind of blocked it out of my mind because, you know, as an only child, as most of my friends were swimming, because when I started at the age of 8, I was really focused on swimming with my friends. And if I got to beat somebody, then great. But it was really about the friendship of the sport. And you know, even at this juncture in my career, the amount of people that I consider family and friends, yourself included, as my swim family. You know, that's what's kept me in the sport as long as it is. That's what brought me back to the sport. Yes, I checked a lot of boxes and I had to deal with that, but it was a lot of people and friends that I had that were saying, don't worry about that. Don't worry about it. Stick with it. Stick with your goals. I had a lot of mentors. I had a lot of friends that kept me going, even though I was the only person that looked like me many times when I was at the meet.
Yeah. Well, I think we're at a point in life, in the world, where we've seen black people swim. It's not surprising anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever seen anyone swim like you swam. I mean, you swam across the water, the surface of the water, like you were running. You know what I mean? Like you took running into swimming and swam faster than, you know, everybody on earth. I mean, you were electric on top of the water. And I guess what that also did was break down some stereotypes of, like, not only can black people swim, but, you know, they're not, they don't sink in the water. You know, Cullen Jones floats and skips along the water, you know? So, like, I think when people watched you swim, it was kind of breathtaking, you know?
I appreciate that. I really do. I mean, especially coming from you, because not only as an Olympian and a coach, that means a lot. For me, it's, and I always tell this story because as we've talked about, you know, I feel like the baton is still with me. I hope to pass it on to the next swimmer. But getting more people of color to understand the sport of swimming and the lifestyle, and not lifestyle, life skill of swimming is so important to me. But the first thing everyone says is like, oh, you know, black people don't swim. Our bones aren't, you know, our bones are too heavy. Tim Ellis, I love when he coins it. He's like, our bones are too heavy. He's like, I've been swimming all my life. What are you talking about? And Brett, it's the same thing with me. I'm 6'5". Yeah, I went to the Olympics twice. I can't float. That has nothing to do with it. And so I think a lot of people, we have to break that stereotype. But to what you were talking about, and I thank you for that, it just meant I had to work harder. You know, to make that smooth stroke happen, I became a clinician. From, you know, David Marsh to Brooke Steele to, you know, Chad Onken to my coach Ed Nessel and Lou Petrozello. When I was a kid at 15, I was super skinny. So I wasn't like this big muscular kid. I came into NC State a string bean. Like, they were like, this kid doesn't eat. And I was like, I eat everything. I take it all down. But I had to figure out how to beat people bigger than me. And the only way I knew how to swim fast and beat these kids was technique. So to get my stroke to where it was a lot of watching other strokes, visualizing, I like how they did this, and then figuring out how it worked for my body. Then when I added muscle at NC State, that's when the career began.
That's interesting. I do want to dig into that, the technical side of sprinting, right? Like when you look at track, you can see technique. It's a little bit harder to see technical swimming in the water because you got splash and everything else going on around it, and you're moving so quickly, things are happening fast. So for you, you know, like it's almost like, you know, a martial artist, you know, as a sprinter, you want to slow things down. You want things to be in slow motion, you know? So what was that for you? How did you were able to do that? And when you were in slow motion, what were you trying to do technically?
You know, I love how you said that. I mean, because for most people, they're like, the 50 free is so short. And for us, it's like the longest event because we're breaking down every hand hit, every kick. Was my start right? And I think the number one thing that, like, David Marsh used to say this to me all the time, you never do a bad turn. You never do a bad start. You never do a bad stroke. And I mean, after 10 years of beating it into my head, he was right. And I understood later on, was like, when I'm racing, I don't want to think about my hand position. When I'm racing, I don't want to think about, was that a good start? So what it made me do is not just think about racing. It made me take the racing piece. We get so excited about racing. Let's get excited about practice. Figure out how to practice at that same level. If I messed up on a start, I had to do it again. If my stroke in that 50 was terrible, I had to do it again. He was always very, very big into, you never leave the pool with a broken stroke. Yeah. And that just changed everything in my head. Like, even to this day, like, I was in the pool this morning and I was like, ooh, that arm doesn't feel right, and I got to fix it. And I was like, man, you're retired if you don't get out of this pool and go to work. but it's so ingrained that, like, the technique piece of it is so ingrained in my head that I love it. I love breaking it down, like you said. Even now, watching Caleb and watching all of these amazingly Popovich, it's like, man, this kid was as skinny as me. How's he going this fast? Yeah, what is he doing? And so like, I'm breaking down all those things, and I think that's why we're swim nerds. That's why we love it.
Yeah, absolutely. What are the things you were trying to do then? For me, sprinting is about balance. I learned balance from Popov. You know, Popov had this kayak style where one side looked like the other. You know, when you're paddling a kayak, it was almost like this paddle kind of style. So balance was always important for me. I wanted my left to look like my right. Were you similar in that sense?
Oh, 100%. I mean, everything had to do with balance. And one of the things that I remember one of my coaches saying is, like, you know, it's like math. What you do to one side, you do to the other. And he wanted to find that same thing. And same person, man. I looked up to Popov too, and I watched his races and his finishes and how he kind of, like, I mean, just like set the world on fire. So one of the things that I did was, again, this was before iPhones and YouTube, which, you know, a lot of these young swimmers, I encourage them to watch other swimmers because, you know, we didn't have that. I would get to look at, like, Phelps's stroke and be like, all right, I see his high elbow. Does that work for me? No, that doesn't work for me. Okay, let me look at Fred Bousquet. Okay, straight arm. That's not, maybe if I mix both of them, fix one thing. And so that's kind of how I started to develop my stroke. And I remember, I'll never forget, in 2008, got a gold medal, world record, and day of Marsh, I get back to practice. I was out way overweight. I was not in shape from too many Krispy Kreme donuts. And he was like, okay, first off, we need to get you in shape. Second thing is, we're not swimming freestyle because you need to learn how to swim freestyle. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? He goes, watch your race again. Fred destroyed you. He swam like a man. You swam like a boy. It's time for you to figure this out.
Oh, wow.
Swam the next 6 months backstroke. He didn't let me do turns because he said, your turns, you messed up. Fix your turn. I was doing hundreds on repeat backstroke with open turns and expecting to make these sets. And I was like, I have a gold medal in the Olympics. It didn't. He was like, we are fixing your stroke.
We individualize training in the pool, so why not individualize your nutrition? Erica Beine of Beine Wellness Building will help you and your swimmers get exactly what each athlete needs through genetic testing and personalized nutrition plans. So stop guessing what you should and shouldn't be putting into your body. Athletes within a few weeks have noticed they're recovering faster because they're fueling their body with what they need and staying away from what their body hates. Erica understands swimming. She gets it. She's worked with over 20 Olympians, including the fastest man in the world, Caleb Dressel. Group discounts are available, so go to Beine Wellness Building and get in touch with Erica today. That's Beine, B-E-I-N-E, wellnessbuilding.net.
I never forgot. I got back in December working with him, and I went to a meet in Raleigh at the TAC pool, and I finally figured out how to open up my arm. And he goes, okay, now you can swim freestyle. This was in April. Our trials were in June. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm like swimming freestyle. I'm getting excited. And if you look at 2009, you'll see a massive difference in my 50 free, and I set the American record.
Wow, okay.
A literal season of doing backstroke.
We're going to go to the videotape here. We're going to break this thing down, but that sounds like a Tiger Woods overhaul. You know what I mean?
Sorry, my son just showed up.
All good, man. It happens. This is real
the
life.
Starts going crazy.
It's all good.
Life has changed.
Yeah, exactly. Dad now, hey? You're chasing kids rather than someone chasing you down now. So.
Well, yeah, there you
go. Yeah. Let me ask you. I just want to get your thoughts on 2008. I mean, you've told the story probably a million times, but just from your perspective, I mean, I guess there was a lot of pressure on this relay, and did you feel like your performance wasn't up to par in some way on that relay? Is that what you're saying?
You know, Brett, to be completely honest, I mean, from everything that I gave at that race, it was everything I had. You know, 47.5. I mean, I'm still to this day thrilled with the time. But, you know, I mean, I know that, you know, the French was talking trash, whatever. I knew 3 out of the 4 guys, and I was friends with them. You know, Fred and I are still friends to this day. We were always friends.
Right.
But it was like, take that piece out, take out the time. He caught me. And I think that's the biggest thing that David wanted me to realize. He was like, you had a lead and he caught you. Do you ever want to be in that position again? And no, I was like, no, I never want to be in that position again. He's like, it was a great swim. You went fast. You went faster than you thought you were going to go. And I said, yeah. I mean, even to today's standards, a 47.5 is not a bad swim. But in my head, he caught me.
Yeah.
And so I use that as fire. I mean, that just got me fired up for the next year. And so I think that's what got me to my 100 wasn't where it needed to be. I just think that because I didn't train freestyle all year.
Yeah.
You know, he made me focus on, you know, really the sprints, getting back in shape, and then, you know, like trying to do more technical stuff. So I think that when it came to that thought process of the 2008, was it a success? Of course, the time was great.
Yeah.
But he caught me. I think that was the biggest thing in my
Yeah. That makes sense. It's sometimes it's just a matter of that ego kicking in too and just saying to yourself, like, my role was to hold position and I let somebody pass me. That bothers me. That's going to make me better, you know?
Yeah. That was it.
No matter what. I mean,
that I had to take something from it, a win from it, or I had to take something that I needed to fix. And I think that was the biggest.
Right. Yeah. Because actually you probably would have been blinded by the fact that you're now a gold medalist world record holder and like, I got nothing to fix. I got nothing to work on. I was perfect, you know? Yeah.
And I went to NC State, and I call myself a wolf. And David knew how to poke the wolf. He knew exactly what he needed to say to me to get me to go, okay, yeah, I need to work harder.
On that too, I guess I had heard, I don't know, you can clarify, but I'd heard that you took some more motivation too from 2008. Cesar Cielo won the 50 freestyle, and I had heard that you took some motivation from that going into the next Olympic cycle, and then you know you get to London and you end up winning the silver medal. He ends up winning the bronze. Was there any motivation in that time from that? Is that a real thing?
That is a real thing that actually did happen. Okay. And so in 2006, I touched him out and I beat him in the 50 free at NC's. In 2008, I didn't get the chance to swim the 50 free. I would have loved to race him in the 50 free. I was in, David put me through. I mean, I got to him in April of that year in 2008. Our trials were in June. I mean, he beat me up. He got me ready for that. And I felt better in the 50 than I did for even the 100, but I missed the 50. I didn't swim well at trials. And so watching him in 2008, it was like, man, I know I could do this. I was fast enough. I should have done it. And so my goal for 2008 was to try to win. I wanted to win the 50 free, not to mention my biggest goal was to always hear my name. I wanted to hear Cullen Jones representing Team USA. And so I did get to do that. And the year before, in 2011, I had a terrible year. I just wasn't as focused as I needed to be. I remember David saying, like, you got a gold medal. If you don't want to do this, then just don't do it. Be done. My mom was like, hey, don't you disrespect the Jones name coming out here swimming like that. And I was like, all right, Mom, all right. You don't even know my times, but all right. Yeah. And then, I mean, back then it was like college, I forget what it was called, but it was like a message board essentially. And I had heard that Cesar said, you know, it would take a natural disaster for me to not win the 50 free. And again, you don't poke the wolf. I read that and I was like, okay. And I mean, if you ask David, he'll be like, there was like a day where Cullen wasn't paying attention. He was just kind of like having a good time. And then it was like a switch flipped. And it motivated me. You know, I mean, I would say that the French team talking trash, that motivated me. But yeah, I mean, I have nothing but love for Cesar. I really do. I think he's a great swimmer. I think he's a great person. We've hung out. I mean, he's my Olympic swim brother.
Yeah.
But behind the block, we have to race, man.
Yeah.
And so I trained. I did everything that I could do, and then got to swim the 50 free and make the team and premier sprinter swimming the 50 and the 100. And I had, like, I'll say it here. I had pictures of Cesar in my house of him in 2008 doing this. And it motivated me because I was like, anytime I didn't want to go to practice, I would see a picture of him and I'm like, okay, go to practice. Okay, gotta go to practice. But I made my dream real. I said to myself, I was going to beat him. I want to beat him. Yeah. And I get to the Olympics and I get second, and it wasn't to him. I didn't say I wanted to win, Brett. I didn't say I wanted to win.
You should have said you wanted to win. That's it. Yeah. Sometimes we don't aim for exactly what we want. You know, you just want to beat him, man. Yeah, you got him. How do you do that in a moment like that, Cullen? When you've been, you know, focused and amped for something for 4 years, it's been motivating, it's been getting you out of bed, it's been pushing you through hard workouts. When you're in a moment like the Olympic final and it means everything to you at that point, like it's a culmination of like, okay, all that stuff I just did, it was for this moment. Now I have this moment. How am I going to react in this moment? Like you're in control in a way of what you're physically feeling and thinking at that point in time. So, you know, as a sprinter, you never want to snatch at the water, right? You never want to grab the water. But when you want something that bad, it's almost a natural instinct to grab at the water, right? Like pull harder, try harder. So how were you able to maintain that focus of being in the right space to swim as fast as you possibly can while still wanting to kill the guy next to you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say failure. I mean, I would say that what I learned in 2008 by missing is what set me up for 12. You know, there's so many things out there, books that we talk about self-help and all these things. But like one of the key things that I love to hear about is failure, because failure teaches growth. Me missing 2008 and swimming trials and me feeling like I set the American record in trials in 2008. I was first, then I got second in semis, and then here I go swimming in finals against one of my idols, Gary Hall Jr., and he's in his bedazzled to hell Everlast with the boxing gloves, and I'm like, what is happening? I spent the worst race of my life, and what was that? Because I was doing exactly what you said. It took me out of my swim strategy for that 50 free. Everything that David told me to do, I did none of it because I was, one, distracted, two, trying to rev up to try to get to where, like, to win. And when I was not even behind the block, in the ready room of that 50 free, and I'm looking around and I see Cesar and I see Flo and I see I just kept smiling. And it was at that moment I felt like all the pieces that I needed, I lived it already. I knew how to swim this 50 freestyle. So I was just excited. One, because I finally got to hear my name, Cullen Jones, representing Team USA. But also it was like, I've done this before. Don't rev up. Be in the moment. Stay in your goggles. Don't look. Now, what I will tell you, and I will be honest with you, I did look. Out the right side, and I saw I was about a half a stroke ahead of Cesar. So that's why I was like, yeah, I'll touch the wall. And I'm like, yeah, second. What? Didn't see lane 2 and Flo out there who had the half a stroke ahead of me. But yeah, like I think, yes, to your point, like we always want to rev up. But I think what got me to even that performance of swimming as well as I did was failure. and realizing that like I need to learn from that failure, not let it crush me. Get up, do it again, get up, do it again, get up, do it 10 more times.
Yeah. I love what you said there, man. I can relate to all that as well. And that experience does get you. But there's nothing like the Olympic final, man, of just maybe having a little peak. Like it's difficult to not, you know.
Yes.
I've been there myself. I had Roland Schumann next to me in the Olympic final, and I'm like, man, when I dove in the block and went to take my first stroke and just took a peek across, I'm like, dang, his start's good, man. You know, like that's the first thing you think.
Leg up, he's already like, boom, and gone.
Yeah. When someone's got something on you, it's tough. What was the thing that you felt like, okay, they're not going to get me? This is where I get everybody. They can't get me here. I'm gonna have to suffer through a little bit of this or that. You know, where was your weaknesses and where were your strengths?
My strength was always my start. Always my start. I had a 36-inch vertical, so I knew I would get off the block. My weakness was the breath. David and I worked tirelessly at breath control. It's so funny that now I do Wim Hof breathing. I can hold my breath for like 3 minutes, but when I was actually racing, I would go 10 strokes. I'm like, and I couldn't hold my breath. We didn't actually start, and again, poke the wolf, until after 2012, where you said you lost because you took the breath. Yeah. So I didn't take a breath. Cesar's never taken a breath. Yeah. And you're the only person taking a breath. And to a certain extent, you have people like Gary Hall Jr. who took 4. But his breath was so quick and so efficient that it never slowed him down. When I took a breath, it was like restart, reload. Like I had to take a second to actually get back into my stroke. So that was one of my biggest weaknesses, was just trying to understand how to hold my breath when I'm in that like super panicked, not panicked. The best way of saying it is like redline. We all redline at some point. And when I hit the point of redlining and being like, I don't have air, I immediately have to take a breath. We tried to work at that not being something that was an Achilles heel, but it ultimately was. And I didn't get better at it until after 2012. Yeah.
Look, it's an ongoing thing, especially with a weakness, man. I don't think you ever fully conquer your weaknesses, you know, like that for some reason they're just innate in you. Like it's just something that you are not great at from the get-go, from the jump. Yeah. I don't think you ever master them, but you learn to get better at them and control them in a way, so that they're not an Achilles heel for you. But I think that's the case. But one other thing here, man, I appreciate you doing this. Is there a story where Kobe and LeBron came to visit you in the village? Is that true?
Yes. So in 2008, I was ready to swim the 100 freestyle, going to because everything was backwards. It was in China, so finals were in the morning, prelims were at night. So just made the team. Eddie Reese has just told me, you are the 4th person. You're going. Actually, no, he didn't tell me which role, where I was going, but he told me I was on the relay. So I go back to the room. I've now done drug testing. I've eaten finally. It's like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. I'm like kind of trying to fall asleep, but I can't because I'm so excited. And at the same time thinking, you can't mess this up. You can't mess this up. You know, MP never made it about himself. He never said like, oh, I'm going for 8 gold medals, don't mess up. But it was always like implied, like we were all a team. And you know, when you're on a team with like Aaron Pearsall, Brendan Hansen, Locke, MP, like that's a lot of pressure. And you don't want to be the person that's like not showing up. And so for me, I was swimming it over and over and over and over and over in my head. And I just remember the door banging, and I opened the door, and it was Mike. And I was like, yo, what's up? And he's like, it's 1 a.m, man. You have so much swimming to do. Why are you still awake? And he's like, NBA guys are downstairs. Like, we got to run downstairs. And I'm like, what? So, like, Ryan is always my roommate. We've been roommates since 2005. So I kick him, and I'm like, Ryan. He's like, what? I was like, all the NBA guys are downstairs. So we just run down the stairs, and we get to see everybody there. And, like, I'm shaking hands with Kobe, LeBron, D-Wade. And, like, I was a basketball player growing up, and along with swimming. And swimming took over probably about when I was about 13 years old. but I always paid attention. My dad, like we talked about before, checking boxes. I never saw someone that looked like me. So my dad had me looking at other sports like basketball, Michael Jordan, to say, this is what an athlete does. Like, I remember to this day, the game when Jordan and Pippen was holding Jordan up and he had the fever and Gatorade ended up making a commercial about it. But I remember sitting there watching and my dad being like, that's what an athlete does. He puts the team before himself. He doesn't matter how he feels. He's working for everyone else. And I remember a couple of relays in college. Yeah, I had 102 fever. That was my Michael Jordan moment.
Yeah.
But it was like, I'm sitting here shaking hands with all of these guys that I'm like, I've been watching you. I look up to these guys, and they were there. Didn't matter about what their sport was. They were there to represent and to really stand behind Team USA. And so I think that was the coolest part, was that we were all a team. And so it got really quiet. And then LeBron was the only person. He's like, "Oh shoot, there's a black dude on the swim team," and everyone busted out laughing. And it was just like a really cool moment that to this day I love telling that story. And I mean, I cannot tell you how much I learned from just that experience. Like, I was done first. That was my only event, and so the NBA guys came to swimming 3 other times that week. So I got to sit down and talk to Kobe and LeBron and D-Wade, and I was just a sponge, man.
Yeah.
I used to learn from them. I mean, it was really cool experience.
Yeah. I bet, man. Yeah, I was there, but I was watching you sit with them, and I was thinking, I want to be Cullen right now, you know, like. So yeah, that's cool. You got that experience. Swim Angelfish. Swim Angelfish is an online certification program that strengthens your teaching curriculum to serve swimmers of all abilities. Swim Angelfish will prepare you and your instructors with the skills to teach swimmers with autism, physical disabilities, anxiety, sensory and motor conditions, and more. Learn to teach skills faster and with more comfort with Swim Angelfish. Apply for an Only Alpha Pool Product Scholarship and receive up to 50% off your certification. Go to swimangelfish.com today to apply. Listen, I can't let you go without at least, look, you were teammates with the greatest athlete, you know, possibly in history, man. Like, yeah. And we all have heard pretty much all the stories, but from your perspective, like, what did you take from Michael? You know, like, when you're observing him, when you're sitting around him, like I was teammates with Ian Thorpe, and I can tell you I took some stuff from that guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, just the pressure that he was able to consume, eat pressure. I don't know how he did it, man. It was like, but it was amazing to me. But what's the one thing you took from Phelps, man, that you could share?
You know, I think the work he has done now in mental health has been, I mean, amazing, because from those that were around him, the closest, we saw it, but even for us, we didn't see it. He was so good at, like you said, eating that pressure, and it was just a part of our life. And like, I know he leaned on us quite a bit. I remember he and Lockie and myself, and we would usually be either Eric Canto or Brendan. We would play cards every night, and it was a release for us to just not think about the pressure of what we had to do. So one of the things that I learned from him was just the professionalism. I mean, this guy's a year younger than me, but like, when it came to just how well he handled being a pro athlete, it was remarkable. I would watch him come in and, I mean, just slumped over from them taking an obscene amount of blood from him, because they're like, how is this guy doing it? His drug testing was bananas. He finally eaten. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, and he's got to go to sleep to swim 3 more events the next day. And it was mind boggling to watch him do this. And so, I know a lot of people give him a lot of flack, and I'm always in his corner about that. Like, I can't stand when people talk. You have no idea what this man was going through. You have no idea. He didn't sign my autograph. Okay. Did you see the 500 people behind you, and he has to swim an event? Like, come on, some grace. Understand that, yes, he is an idol. Yes, he's a role model, and he did a really good job of being a role model given what he had to go through. So I learned professionalism with him. And he always had his mind on not only the pool, but just outside the pool too. And you see that in all the different things that he has his hands in now. But I'll tell you, Brett, the biggest thing was y'all never got to see the best races. The best races were at training camp when Ryan and Michael they wouldn't even say words. And they would just look at each other, and you would just see them just start going at it, just racing. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And it was fun. It was watching two titans. That's the only way I can think of it. And two of the greatest in our sport, just like always pushing each other to be better and just to be the best friend both. It was just icing on the cake. I just got to watch. Yeah, so it was a really cool experience. But I learned professionalism from that.
That's awesome, man. We don't even think about those training camps, do we? Like when you go from trials to the event, you know, the Olympics, you got about 4 weeks, and you're going off somewhere together as a U.S. team to build team, but also here, sharpen the pencil, man. You know, like man. You're just sharpening the pencil. And so I imagine these two are just in there going at it. You're right. That would have been cool to have some kind of reality TV cameras back then. But
it got to the point where they had to be like different coaches had to coach either one, because if they were doing the same thing, they were going at it. I mean, they were just racing. They were always racing each other. Right. It was just fun to be around. It was infectious for everyone else. Like if they got on the block, there was at least about another 10 of us being like, well, I'm gonna swim my event right now too.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, look, and I look at your career, it was phenomenal. The impact that you've had on your college, the impact that you've had on your community, the impact you've had on American swimming. I mean, massive, man, huge admirer of yours in terms of the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you present. I mean, you couldn't get a more professional person. So if you learn professionalism from Michael, man, you're passing it on. So
I'm trying, man. Thank you. I
appreciate that. So yeah, huge honor for me. And listen, this podcast is going to come out the next week, which is the week that we're going to be racing each other. You and I get to go head to head finally.
Yes,
I don't know if we can call it a head to head. But we're racing in Fort Lauderdale, Race the Legends, you and I. Kind of cool. This is cool. We're putting this thing together this Saturday, and we're going to race, huh?
Yeah, we're going to get it. I mean, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you, Brett. It's my first open water that, like, really is a race. Like, David would make us do some practices in the open water, but I would always find, oh, my tummy hurts. I would find some way to get out of it. But no,
there's sharks out there, man. There's real sharks.
I'm a little nervous, but you know what? I committed. We're going to do it. We're going to do it together.
Yeah, we're doing it together. And if I see something coming, I'm hiding behind you. That's for sure.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah, it'll be fun, man. It'll be fun to get together, and I hope to see a lot of people there. So this podcast will come out a few days before, so I'm sure there's still time to sign up. Come race us, Fort Lauderdale, September 3rd. We'll be on the beach, ready to go, having some fun. So, Cullen, appreciate it, man. Thanks for everything.
Thank you for having me, Brett.
All right, take care. Bye.